Hey everyone, welcome back to I Heart Movies. My name is Jonathan North, and today we've got a brand new kind of show for you. Maybe the first of a series, we'll see how this goes. But I have two new guests today, and we're going to be sharing 5 mini reviews of some things we discovered during this crazy year, 2020, while we're all in quarantine. Or whatever passes for quarantine where you are. Technically, I'm an essential worker, so I haven't felt like I'm personally in lockdown since I go to work at a grocery store every week. But most of us are in some form of limited social situation, and we could all use some new media suggestions, so that's what this show is going to be. Earlier this year, I started a series on my YouTube channel that I called Quarantine Reviews, where I've been reviewing new movies and TV that I've seen during quarantine, and it's been a very secondary project to my podcast. I haven't put out that many episodes, but I really like the idea of it, and I've been thinking for a while on how I could incorporate it into my podcast. So last month I had the idea of bringing in a guest to talk about recent releases during quarantine, but then to switch things up, I thought, why not make it kind of a review/recommendation type of thing? We could each choose 5 different things to talk about that we wanted to recommend, and then we can share them, talk about them, if we've each seen whatever we've chosen. So to that end, for my first guest on this new show, I have Conrado Falco, who recently appeared on my other podcast, Every Version Ever. He and Rachel Wagner joined me to discuss the 1953 version of War of the Worlds for that show. But then joining us for this episode is Conrado's wife, Sajda. So since they are both new guests to the show, I thought we'd kick things off with a little Q&A to get to know them, and then we'll jump right into our quarantine reviews. So I guess to start with, why don't you just tell me a little bit about yourselves?
Sure. So I'm Sajda, and I'm primarily an actress and New York based.
Yeah, you're also my wife.
I'm also your wife. I happen to do that.
Yes, and I am Conrado, and together, I guess we are the co-creators and co-stars, along with our friend Gamal, of the web series Wormholes.
Yeah, and co-artistic directors of our theater company Showdogs, which is producing the show.
Right. Once theater company, now since the pandemic started. I guess a TV web company.
All-purpose media.
Okay. So I watched some of your web series. Is that your first thing that you've ever done?
As a web series, yes. We've done a couple of web shorts, and we've done some theater. We've been working in theater for the last couple of years, but that obviously this year was not a possibility. We actually had a show scheduled to have a run in April here in New York, but then of course everything got canceled in quarantine. And once we were all stuck at home is when we came up with the idea for the show to kind of put all our energy that we're going to do for that show into this other one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I kind of wondered about that because it seemed like the perfect thing to do when you're stuck at home. It was like the whole show revolved around one apartment. So it seemed like the perfect quarantine project.
Yeah. So that was one of the idea. We wrote it specifically during quarantine as well. So it was kind of the thing of like, we just got to make it happen in this apartment.
Right.
We can't go anywhere.
He's gotta, some men definitely have to work from home, and Bailey has to be an influencer. Great. They never have to leave.
So I know you are into movies a lot, Conrado. Do you, Sajda, do like reviews or anything?
I mean, I love looking at reviews, but I personally, I'm in the movie just for the experience and, just to take it all in.
But you host a podcast.
But I do host a podcast, but we just review culture.
You talk
about movies. Because movies are a part of culture. But I wouldn't say we go as in depth into reviewing. We're usually looking at like, what are the cultural things that movie is like hitting on for us, and why does it affect us? So it's kind of the thing that I like to look into. But I love movies. So
So Conrado, when you were getting into like movie reviews and stuff, did you like gravitate towards YouTube at first, or did you do like writing first, or how did you get into it?
Yeah, so I first got into it when I moved to New York, to the US I'm originally from Peru, so South America. And when I first got here, well, first of all, I didn't know anyone, but also I loved movies, and I was trying to be better at writing in English because I was going to college. So I decided to start a blog reviewing movies as a way to like get better at writing, and I was always interested in that kind of thing. So I actually have never done like YouTube reviews or anything like that. I do host or co-host a podcast with our friend, actually Rachel Wagner, who
we love Rachel. We
yeah.
stand.
So that's the Criterion Project, and I do that, and then I write reviews on my blog. But my first YouTube experience has been kind of this new show, Wormholes. So we're excited about that.
Okay. So, what are you guys' favorite movies?
Of all time, of this year?
I guess just in general. And if you're like me and you can't really pick one favorite, just maybe you could name a couple that you really like.
Sure. Do you want to go first? I feel like you have a few that I can think of already for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Some of them we will get to later in the show, but I will just say that we just moved to a new apartment and just finished putting up a sort of shrine with 4 pictures of one of my favorite movies of the last couple of years, which is Phantom Thread. So I just did kind of a picture collage with Daniel Davis and Vicky Creeps, and I put it in our living room. So yeah, I'm pretty much obsessed with that movie.
You are. Do you have another one, or you want me to bounce back and forth?
Yeah. What about you? What is your favorite?
Sure. So I mean, right. I think I could think of. I'll think of something more recent that's like kind of stayed with me. Was the movie Princess Sid. When I first saw that, I was like, it had been one of those things where I was like, that's right. Like, that's what a movie can make you feel when you watch it. And it like totally like revamps your adoration for film as like an art medium. And that was something that recently did that for me.
Yeah, that's a great movie. I guess maybe a lot of people haven't seen it. It's an independent movie about this girl who spends the summer in Chicago, and it's really beautiful.
It's just gorgeous. It's a gorgeous coming of age story, and I was like, I had felt maybe bombarded by coming of age stories, and they just didn't hit me in that way. They didn't feel as like, I don't know, sincere, or I don't even know if I can put into words why it stands out so much against like other movies in its genre, but it just was magnificent.
Okay, I don't think I've heard of that one. I'll have to look that one up.
It's really
coming of age movies can be a little cheesy sometimes.
Right, or like I was like, I know that like maybe someone felt that way when they were like coming of age, but it just didn't resonate. And even this doesn't really 100%, you know what I mean? Like I never went to my aunt's house in Chicago, but something about it, I was like, like I see the emotions. This.
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys like movies. Do you have any favorite TV shows, or are you primarily movie fans?
Ooh, I love TV.
Sajda is one of those, what do you say, like
serial bingers.
Yeah. She will keep watching for days at a time with no stop.
Yeah, most recently I did spend 7 days rewatching True Blood, so a season a day is what I did, which was quite intense.
Would you say True Blood is one of your favorites?
I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but I was very happy that I finally because I didn't finish it. I didn't see all of season 6, and I didn't see season 7. So I was happy the first time around. So I was happy that I finally got to see it through. But I don't know if I would put it in my favorites. But it was yeah.
Well, just before this call, we were talking with you, Jonathan, about Over the Garden Wall, and I do love that show. It's a short show, obviously. It's a mini-series, but I think it's beautiful. What else? I love Mad Men.
Mad Men's one of your favorites.
Deadwood.
I was girl. I did love
The Simpsons. We were watching that earlier in the quarantine. I love The Simpsons. The old ones, the classic seasons.
I haven't seen a whole lot, but everybody always talks about it like getting terrible after a certain point.
Yeah, but after like 10 years, there's like 10 seasons that are great. It's just been on for so long, you know?
Yeah. They probably have kind of run out of ideas at this point.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. But it's crazy. Can you imagine doing something for just that long?
For 30 years?
I just can't imagine doing it. I mean,
I would imagine that not everybody who works on it has been there for 30 years. They probably kind of cycle in new writers.
Yeah, definitely writers.
Right.
But the actors have been the same actors for 30 years. That's a good
that's
gig, though.
I mean, that's a great gig. Are you kidding me? Woo, set up for life.
So we're talking kind of animation stuff. Do you guys have any favorite animated movies?
I'm a big How to Train Your Dragon fan. It is delectable to me. I don't know how many times I've seen the first one at this point, and every time I like cry. The music like just invigorates me. Like I love it so much.
Yeah,
it does have a great score.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. For me, I would say I love animated movies. I think that's probably the first thing that got me connected with again in the first place. I love the Looney Tunes. That's also something we've been watching a lot in quarantine now that they have the shorts on HBO Max, and I love all of those shorts.
I love Ponyo.
Oh yes, I love Ponyo and Miyazaki, and so Ratatouille is one of my favorites.
Delicious.
I was just listening to it was Rachel. I was listening to Rachel's podcast on Ratatouille the other day, and I was like, I need to watch this again. It's been too long. But that's such a good movie.
It's so delightful.
Do you have any favorite books or book series?
Yeah, I've got a few. I feel like you're more of a non-fiction lover.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say I like books, which I famously don't.
No, you don't.
I read all day, but it's all nonfiction essays and articles and stuff.
Yeah,
I have a hard time going through a novel.
Yeah,
I would say. But you love books.
Yeah, I to be honest, weirdly enough, I thought that like during quarantine would be more, but for some reason I actually haven't been reading as much as I would like to. But I did definitely like a YA teenager, and I loved like some of the early stuff that I really loved was the Great and Terrible Beauty book series was delightful to me. It's a vampire series, but I can't remember. It's one of the it's like Cirque du something, I think. I can't remember the name of it, but it'll come to me later. But 13 Little Blue Envelopes was a book that it's just like a girly traveling the world book, but it gets me every time, that I really love. And The Book Thief. I also love The Book Thief a lot too.
All right.
I've got a few.
Okay. And music. Do you have a favorite musician or album? Favorite genre?
I feel like this is like a basic black girl answer, but Beyonce is up there for me. She just does it. Like I can't argue that she makes top 3, you know what I mean? But I've also been listening to there's somebody on my list later too, but Princess Nokia, that has been really putting some bangers out there. And Cupcake. Oh, I could talk about Cupcake for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I don't know. This is hard. I love music and I love a lot of different artists, so it's hard to pinpoint anything.
And famously, if we ever have children in this life, we did decide that we were gonna, if it was a girl, we were gonna name a combo name of 2 of our favorite artists.
Oh yeah, of Carly Rae Jepsen and
Charlie XCX.
Charlie XCX. Yeah. So like kind of the dance pop divas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do love that. I will say this, since I can't pick just one person, I would say that when I graduated my last semester of college, I wrote and directed a musical about Taylor Swift. So that maybe gives a little bit about
your music taste.
Okay. And my last couple of questions that I always try to ask everybody is your favorite things when you were growing up. So like your favorite movie or cartoon, whatever you really liked when you were growing up.
I kind of already mentioned one of mine was Looney Tunes, but also the Muppets and kind of cartoons and puppets and all like TV shows. I watched a lot of TV as a kid, and anything that had like wild cartoons or like puppets in it was kind of the the stuff that that really got me excited.
Yeah, I love Muppets.
I was a like, a Powerpuff Girl, a Danny Phantom kid, and then of course I got into like teenage soaps. So I know this is gonna sound bad, but One Tree Hill did it for me when I was growing up. It just did. It just did.
I don't think I ever watched that, but I always saw the commercial because I watched Smallville, and that would always play commercials during Smallville.
Yep. That was a good time for me as far as like that, just like genre.
WB.
Yes, I was like, you could give me any CW show and I'd probably like it,
Mm-hmm. And then the last question, what is the first movie you remember seeing in theaters?
Oh. So I know for a fact that the first movie that I saw in the theater, but I can't possibly remember because I was 2 years old, was The Lion King. So I know that for a fact that my parents took me to see that, and there's a picture of us at the movie theater or something like that. And that's another thing that I could have said, that's something that I loved as a kid. I had it on VHS, watched it almost every day.
Yeah.
Like one of those movies for me that it's like, I feel like sometimes it's kind of the movie that I based all my understandings of other movies compared to it. Like when I was when you start writing or take screenwriting class and they tell you the story beats, I would always be, hey, the exciting incident, that's when like Simba, this happens to Simba. And the turning point is, of course, it's when Mufasa dies. That would be the midpoint. And things like that.
I think my first movie is actually pretty devastating because I don't really I just remember being terrified out of my mind. I'm sure I saw the thing in the movie, but The Mummy is like one of the first things I remember.
With like, Brendan Fraser?
Yes, someone taking me to, and the scabs, whatever, they go under the skin. You couldn't tell me anything. I was that awful child screaming in the theater.
That as a small child.
I don't know why they did it. I don't know why. And to this day, I have it's why I have a fear of bugs, is because of that movie.
Oh wow. What is the first movie you saw that you liked, that you had a good experience with then?
I've had so many. I just had like too many like older cousin people. They took me to like the worst things. But the first thing that I liked in the theater, oh goodness, I don't know. What was the first thing that I liked? I mean, I'm sure I saw.
You see Mulan in the theater? You love Mulan.
I love Mulan. I don't know. I think they stopped taking me to theaters for
after the movie.
Because I really don't have many like, other than like horrifying movie moments. I don't have many like, we went to the theater to see this. I was a big VHS. Like the movie that I saw in my household all the time was actually The Parent Trap.
Lindsay Lohan.
It's my grandmother's favorite movie of all time, and I probably know it word for word. This Haitian immigrant woman, like, it's her favorite movie.
That seems like such a random choice for like a Haitian immigrant to gravitate towards.
It gets her every time. Never fails. When what's his face? Dennis Quaid says something at the end. He's like, because Meredith is like, it's either me or them, take your pick. And Dennis Quaid says, them. My grandmother loses it. She says, that's right. That's the way to do it. That's the way. Every time. She knows it's coming up and she whispers it under her breath and then she screams. Wow. It's her favorite. It's so good.
That's great. Sounds like you have a great grandmother.
She's fantastic. Love the woman. She's wonderful.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we can get on to my main idea for this podcast. So I've been doing like a series on my YouTube channel where I just review something that came out in quarantine. I'll just call it Quarantine Reviews. And I've been thinking about it. I was like, I want to turn this into a podcast series. So I thought we could each choose 5 things to talk about and just do like a little mini review and talk about like if more than one of us have seen it, we can have like a little discussion about it and what we like and everything. So why don't you start, Conrado, and then we'll go to you, and then I'll finish and just keep doing it in that order.
Sounds good. So, the first thing that I want to recommend that I've been enjoying in quarantine. Okay,
No.
it's a little bit of a no. Don't worry, it's a little bit of a cheat because I actually saw this right before quarantine. It was the last movie that I saw in a theater before they were all closed, and then we had to go in. But it is now available to stream in quarantine, and I think it's a beautiful, beautiful movie. It's called First Cow, directed by Kelly Reichardt, and it's I mean, the name is First Cow because it's kind of the story of the first cow that was brought into the kind of Oregon territory back in the 1800s. It's really the story of a friendship of the guy who's kind of like a cook who's traveling with like some people who are traveling towards Oregon. And then there's this Chinese immigrant, and they are both kind of outsiders in this kind of rugged Western town, and they kind of strike a friendship. So to me, it's kind of a story about, like you see like capitalism in its early forms and how it's always been part of America, and how there's always been people like even in this kind of idea of the open West and the new frontier and kind of opportunity, there's always been people who are kind of like at the top and at the bottom. But more importantly and more touchingly to me, it's a very beautiful story about friendship of these two people, like very like you can see like these very gentle beings in the West, what I mean? Like we all Westerns are all usually about like these outlaws and guns and fighting and rough people, but like these are two dudes like sensible and sensitive, and they're stuck in this hard place, so they become friends. I think it's a beautiful movie. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that.
Okay. I saw the trailer for that probably during one of the last movies I saw before everything shut down. And I put it on my list of movies that I have to see, and I didn't realize it had come out already. So I need to find that movie so I can watch it, because I really wanted to see it.
Yeah, it's great. I think it must be on VOD now, I think.
Okay.
And I didn't get to see it with you, so
we should rent it or something.
And what about you? What's your first pick?
So my first pick is it's not a movie. It's more like the idea of a person, really. So No Name, the musical artist, has been doing a lot of things during quarantine. She did drop a song called Song 33, but also she had a book club that she was doing, and her Twitter is just been bringing so much joy. Just No Name in general, she is something to just invest in, I would say.
She's a hip hop artist, right?
Yeah.
A rapper, basically.
Yeah, like spoken word rap. It's like a song, you know what I mean? It's not as I wouldn't say like it's not like Nicki Minaj rap, but
okay.
Yeah.
And she just goes by No Name.
Which is delightful.
Okay. I don't think I've ever heard of this person.
And so I definitely did not know much about her before the quarantine. Like I'd heard about her, but I was like, oh sure, like I've heard like a few of her songs, nice. But then during quarantine, I got into her and I went into her album Telephone. I was like, oh yes. I saw her Twitter and her book club, and I was like, oh yeah, she's a gem of a human. So
okay.
All right.
Well, my first choice is also kind of a cheat, because this is also the last movie that I saw before quarantine. But I just got it on DVD or Blu-ray. So, I mean, that came out during quarantine, so that's why I'm counting it. It's the movie Emma.
Oh,
yeah.
This is one, I'd heard the name, I didn't know what Emma was, but I kept hearing these great reviews and how it was just something about this movie that was so different. And I like period pieces, so I was like, I'll go see it. And I ended up loving it. It's just so quirky, maybe. It's just so different than your normal average period piece. Just the way the characters talk, the way they behave, it's just so different. It's one of those things where it's hard to describe to somebody who, like, they probably have an idea of what a period piece is in their head. And I feel like this one is just different enough that just telling people that it's a period piece based on a Jane Austen novel isn't enough. You kind of just have to see it because it's different and it's just fun, and I really like it. Even though the main character, she's not like super likable, I guess, but there's just something about her that I like anyway. It's just it's really hard to describe. It's one of those things where you just kind of have to see it to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We also saw it right beforehand. Yeah, she's so endearing. What is that actress's name? Do you know?
Yeah, Anya Taylor-Joy. She's the one who plays Emma. And then the other actress that I thought was great is Mia Goth, who plays Harriet, who's kind of the girl that Emma is kind of takes under her wing. I thought she was so good.
Fantastic, yeah.
I
No,
don't think I've seen her in anything else, but she was great.
Yeah,
I think there's something about it that's more like I don't know if this is right, but the idea that like it doesn't take itself so seriously as being a period piece. You know what I mean? It's not really like it almost feels like the period part of it is kind of just like it just happens to be like in this time. Whereas sometimes I feel like other times you see a period piece and it's like it's so much about because of the period, and you're like, okay, great, like what else is there? And I think that goes also to the writing of it, that there's something about this story that is exciting to see despite it being a period piece.
Yeah.
Or, adding the period piece on top of it is delightful.
Yeah. Okay. Second pick.
All right, second round. Let me think. My second pick is okay. So I was a big fan of the Bon Appetit YouTube channel, like a lot of people. Then of course there was a whole thing this summer with the whole Black Lives Matter sort of thing, and things about racism in the company or whatever. So that stopped. But one of the I guess chefs on the channel, who was one of the people who blew the whistle about the company. Her name is Sola, and I don't know her last name.
Whaley, I think.
Yeah, that's right. She just goes by Sola most of the time, but she has now appeared in a new YouTube show that just started a couple weeks ago. So now she's on the Binging Babish channel in a show.
The Babish,
Culinary Universe. Yeah. And the name of the show is Stump Sola. And there's been a couple episodes so far, and I think they've been delightful.
So good.
We love cooking and we love watching cooking or food-related television, and we love Sola. So I think if anyone is at all interested in any of those things, or interested in like having a good time and smiling while watching YouTube videos, I think that's a great place to start.
Well, she say watching her do anything is just
the one that was great was when she had to do like a 5-star 7-course dinner with just like deli / bodega ingredients, and that was incredible. I would love to eat that dinner. Yeah,
I kind of toyed with the idea of putting something YouTube in my list. I ended up not to, but I was thinking about like all the people on Bon Appetit. I love watching cooking on YouTube. So many different chefs and bakers, and I love Bon Appetit. And it's so sad what happened there, and I really hope that everybody bounces back. I was so glad that Sola found something like that. I really hope that happens for everybody. The ones who have left, I really hope they find some other way that we can still watch them somehow, because I'm going to miss them all. They were so great.
Yeah, totally agree. Everything you say, I second.
Yeah, it was a hard hit for me, I think. But
I was really hoping that somebody up top there was going to come through and pull out a deal that was going to fix everything, but sadly, no.
Yeah. Well, one step at a time.
Yeah. We've got a couple people that are kind of bouncing back, and everybody has projects in the works, but I'm going to miss seeing them on video.
Yeah, they made a great team.
I was going to say, and that's part of it too. They all also worked so well together, so or at least the
on camera.
On camera.
Mm-hmm.
It's that's sad.
Yeah. But
I'm so happy for Sola.
Yes.
So my number 2 is I May Destroy You by Michaela Cole. That's on HBO. We didn't start watching it immediately. Like we to catch up a little bit, and then we were on our week-to-week schedule watching it. But I just think that what an incredible writer. I didn't really watch Chewing Gum too much. We kind of like started it, and we didn't get to the follow through on it. But watching this, I was like, oh, Michaela is truly like an amazing writer. Like her way of storytelling in the show to me is just kind of immaculate, and it's talking about such like hard topics to talk about, and so I can definitely understand how maybe watching it for people might be triggering or like might be, you know, not necessarily easy to dive into. But I will say, just from like a TV making standpoint, like she's just incredible, and she's really like challenging, I think, what it means to like make art that's like self-investigative, or in a way.
Maybe you should say what it's about.
Oh, sure. So for anybody who doesn't know, I May Destroy You follows a writer who she ends up getting raped, really, and she's roofied and drugged. She doesn't one night while she's out with some friends, and she like doesn't really understand what happened, and like the whole show is kind of going through her learning what happened to her understanding like what it means to be a rape victim, a sexual assault victim, what and like for people around her, like how that may look in different lights and in different situations, and in what ways are people like being complicit, and what ways are people like not even understanding when something has happened to them or when they've done something to someone else. And it's just this writer like really trying to, how do you write? How do you continue to make art when something like that has happened to you in your life? It's just incredible. Just watching this, her character kind of like really figure out how to like be and who to be now, right? Like how to continue making art and who she's going to be moving forward. And so
I think it's also maybe important to say that the show is kind of a comedy, even despite the heavy subject matter. It is a very funny. I mean, it's very, and it makes you. It's very emotional. But it's also very
because it takes place in London, and very much within like the Black community in London. So like a lot of their like speech patterns and their dialogue elements of levity and comedy, and like because I think she's trying to embrace that, like, or show that, right? Show that, like, obviously, like, we have crazy things that happen to us in our lives, but, like, we're also real people that experience, like, a multitude of emotions. And so how do you show joy? How do you show levity? How do you show friendship even throughout all of that? Michaela Coles is great. So just what he was, like, my end sentence then.
That's the gist of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, my second choice is completely different. Mine is from Disney Plus. There's a series called Zenimation. Have you guys seen this?
No.
It's sort of a series of shorts. They're longer than shorts, but they've basically taken clips from different Disney movies, Disney properties, different things that happen while there's either no dialogue or very little dialogue, and they've strung them together into this, I guess you could call it a clip show, but then they've stripped out all the music. It's basically just the sounds of like the natural surroundings in these movies. So you're seeing familiar scenes, but with no music and no dialogue. And I think they've upped the Foley artistry a bit. So I think there's more sound effects. It's just like an immersive experience inside a Disney movie. It's not the full movie, of course. It's like I said, it's like a clip show, but there's like multiple episodes, each with different themes. So there's like ocean scenes and forest scenes and city scenes. And it's just a really cool experience and super creative. This is something that I don't think would be made for TV. It's not something that they would probably even put in a theater. But like Disney Plus is the perfect place for them to like experiment with something like this. And I think it's just such a cool project. And apparently they're making more episodes of it. So I'm really excited for that. I just think it's just such a cool, interesting little series that Disney fans, and even if you're not a Disney fan, it's still interesting from a filmmaking perspective just to watch and kind of get immersed in the sound effects of the worlds that they make.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds pretty
cool. So it's mostly like relaxation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, great. Yeah.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah. It sounds like we should put that on sometime.
I know.
Yeah, it's really great. One of my favorite parts is the scene from Moana where she's out on the water and it's the moment that her grandmother passes away and you see the ray come through. And I just really like watching that scene with no music, no dialogue, just the sounds. It's really cool. I really like it.
Wow.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
We definitely have to check it out.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
All right. Is it
number 3?
Number 3. Here we go. My number 3 pick. We've been watching some movies from the New York Film Festival, which has been available virtually for across the U.S., which is great. So we both have a movie to talk about from the festival, huh?
Sure,
so that's great. So we'll do our movies, our New York Film Festival roundup. Right. So the movie that I wanted to talk about is one we watched a couple of days ago, which is called Lovers Rock. And it is directed by Steve McQueen, who did, 12 Years a Slave and Widows. It's part apparently of kind of like a series of movies that it's going to be released on Amazon Prime in November.
Yeah.
And this is one installment. It's all about the kind of like the history of the kind of West Indian Black community in Britain. And this one takes place in the 70s, Lovers Rock. And it's like, basically it follows like one night, one big party throughout the night, So it's kind of like one of those one night
like a Jamaican
movies.
Dance party.
It's like a Jamaican dance party, and it follows it for a night. There's very little plot to the movie. It's mostly just following the characters as they go to the party, dancing, eating food. The way that the music sequences are shot in the movie, really, really great. Like some of the best that I've seen. And especially now when we're all stuck at home, like how fun and exciting it can be to go out dancing and to be in a room full of strangers who are all like moving to the rhythm. There's a great scene when they're dancing to kung fu fighting, which is really cool. Like about seeing a whole room of people kind of doing kind of kung fu kicks and having fun. And then my favorite scene is one that's scored to the song that I didn't know before, but it's become one of my favorite songs now, which is called Silly Games, which is kind of like a romantic reggae song. And it's I don't know, it's the sexiest moments that I've seen in a movie.
Yeah.
I've always say that the sexiest thing I've seen in a movie is the movie Out of Sight, when George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez meet at the bar. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about.
No, I do. You made me watch it.
Yeah, so that has always been the gold standard for me of like sexy movie scenes. And this might be in competition. So that is Lovers Rock. It comes out in November on Prime.
Yeah, that was so delightful. Also, just the way that it really just does feel like you're like part of this room and group of people is really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. What is your...
So my NIF pick is Garrett Bradley's Time. It's a documentary, and it goes. Hold on. I want to make sure I get their names right. Sybil Fox Richardson. And so she and her husband. Her husband gets put away in jail because they both decide they have a business and they ended up deciding to go rob a bank, and they get caught, and he ends up getting like a crazy long sentence, and
60 years. I think,
is the full sentence, and she doesn't get as much, but so it's kind of, it follows the journey of her from when he first gets incarcerated to when he's finally released. Sorry, a spoiler, I guess?
Yeah, that's a bit of a spoiler. But it's a documentary.
And so it has happened. So it is true life. But it's following the 21 years of this woman and her videos of her talking to her family. She's raising her sons that she has with him, and like it's just so beautiful. And it's really like just like piecing together like what it is like to spend all of your energy and all of your time like trying to get someone released from prison, and like what it's like to just like love someone in prison. And because there's a whole bunch, especially for like the Black community, whole bunch of stereotypes around what it means to like have your partner in prison, and it really is just like a peek into like what it is to be that woman. And like
it's really a yes, I think you're totally right. For me it was really a portrait to something that I had never fully considered, even though I kind of knew it, but I had never sat with it, of like how much it changes your whole life if you're someone that is so close to you go to prison. You know, how for this woman it became a thing of like every single day of her life she spent trying to get him out of prison.
Making phone calls
to lawyers and to other people, you know, trying to make something happen. How getting a 60 actually means to get 60 years in prison. Like, you know, we hear about these sentences, but then when you really consider it. So it's a very, very illuminating documentary.
And I think Garrett Bradley just does a beautiful job of like it not feeling so, I don't know, intrusive. You know what I mean? It feels really like, because she had known Sybil from a different movie that she had done actually beforehand. And so this is like, she calls this a sister movie to it. I can't remember the name of the other movie, but because Garrett did such a great job of like the kind of relationship that she was building with this woman, it doesn't feel like you're kind of like, here, you know what I mean? Like
it doesn't feel exploited.
Exactly. I think that's exactly what I wanted to say. And it's brilliant.
Yeah, and that's also coming out on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, Amazon Prime. Yeah, exactly. So definitely, when it comes out, I'll watch.
Well, my number 3. Well, first I should ask you: have you seen the show Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt?
Yes.
My number 3 is the movie that follows that series. And I only just watched this today. It replaced a different choice that I had. Because I watched it twice today, because the movie is a like choose your own adventure. So if you grew up like in the 90s, maybe before that, I don't know, there's a series of books where you read a little bit and then you're given choices and then you flip the pages to find out what happens next. This is like that, except it's on Netflix and you watch the things happen. And when I first heard that Netflix was going to do some movies like this, I was like, that just sounds weird. That sounds like a gimmick. I don't know if I would even like this. I feel like if somebody makes a movie, I want to know the story that they want to tell me. But I love Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. And so I decided to watch it. And then I watched it again because you could choose like a whole different path and get almost a completely different movie, supposedly. It didn't quite turn out like that because they do have a direction for this story. So no matter what you choose, you're gonna eventually end up on the same basic storyline. But they just have a whole bunch of weird side arcs for these characters that can happen if you choose different choices. And also, if you choose the wrong choices, they die.
That's great.
Which I wasn't expecting. So the first time I watched it, I was like, okay, I didn't know exactly what I needed to do, so I was just going to watch and see what happens if I didn't choose anything. And then it just kept playing. It chose one for me. I was like, well, maybe they've pre-programmed it for the optimal viewing experience. Like, this is the movie they want to show me. So I just let it play. And then the characters died. I was like, okay, well, they obviously didn't choose the optimal viewing experience. So when something bad happens in the movie, it rewinds. You get a message from one of the characters. It rewinds, and you can choose something else. So it did that, and then I started being more direct with what I was choosing. And you get a whole bunch of weird things. Like, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is a weird show already. Yeah. So the fact that you were choosing things and weird things were happening, and I don't know. Like, if you've seen Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, you have to watch this movie. And if you haven't, maybe I would still recommend it, but I would recommend that you watch Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt first, just so you get a flavor of what this show is. But even though I wasn't, like, set on the idea of a choose-your-own-adventure movie, the format of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt is such that it's just ridiculous anyway. So whatever they want to do with this choose-your-own-adventure branching storyline thing, I don't mind that you're not getting whatever, like, the peak viewing performance is. Like, this is their set story. Like, they've written it in such a way that they wanted to have a whole bunch of weird things happen. So just go with it and just have fun with it. I don't know. It's a weird movie, but I really liked it in the end, even though I thought I might not. I don't know. Have you guys watched it or played around with it at all?
No, I didn't know it existed.
You didn't?
Yeah, I don't know that it had that much advertising because I saw like one trailer for it one time, and then, like I said, I forgot that it existed until today when I saw it and was reminded, like, oh yeah, I need to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that long. It's probably not even an hour and a half, but if you end up watching it twice, it's probably like 3 hours. I'm trying to choose all the different things, like find all the, like, I think there are hidden Easter eggs in there too. Because I read one where if you choose the wrong choice twice, you get two different things. Like there's one section of the movie where they're out in the middle of nowhere and Titus orders an Uber, but they're like in Alabama or something, and the nearest Uber, it says, is 4,000 minutes away. So the choices are to stay there and wait for the Uber or to just start walking. And if you choose stay there and wait for the Uber, it shows you what happens 4,000 minutes later, or however long it took this Uber driver to get there. He drives up and it's just Titus and Kimmy's skeletons lying on the ground, and he yells that he's giving them 1 star and drives away. But then I read that you could choose the option to wait twice and get a different choice. So if you do that, again, they die, but their skeletons are found by, you know, all those robots that are in the background of the other episodes? These robots have formed a massive robot army, and they're taking over the Earth. And they find Kimmy's skeleton, and they say, the last good human is dead. It's time to go. And they start marching on humanity.
So it sounds like it's a kind of thing that I would like to have this kind of choose your own adventure experience with.
Yeah.
Right. This is a perfect show for it, I think.
Yeah, because it's just fun.
It is.
That is so beautiful. Oh my gosh, we have to.
We have to
make an afternoon.
Yeah, it's really fun. If you like Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, you'll like this movie.
Great.
Oh man, I'm so done.
Yeah, right. So number 4?
Number 4.
Number 4, here we go. My number 4 is going to be actually a podcast.
Ooh!
Because we are on a podcast. So I assume that if you're listening to this, you enjoy listening to podcasts. So I would like to recommend my friend Lou Gaudio's podcast. We just started, I think, about a month ago, and it's called Robots versus Dinosaurs. And it's a great podcast in which people come on to talk about a movie that has either robots or dinosaurs in it. And to argue in favor of either one. And I guess the super objective of the podcast is to determine which is cooler, robots or dinosaurs. So if someone comes and talks about the movie, and then at the end they say, is it for robots or for dinosaurs, you know? So, you know, if you're the kind of person who enjoys nerdy movies and nerdy movie talk, which I assume a lot of people listening to this might enjoy that kind of thing, I definitely recommend it. They have plenty of great episodes. There's an episode about The Land Before Time, which I really enjoyed. That was great. And actually, I am going to be on the podcast, so this is also kind of a shameless plug. But I think the episode is coming up this week, actually, and it's about the Steven Spielberg movie, AI, Artificial Intelligence. So that's one about robots, and it's a movie that I love. And I think we had a great discussion. So if you're listening to me now and you like the sound of my voice and my opinions, then I recommend that you listen to this podcast. But it's a great podcast regardless. And I think Lou is a great host and he has great conversations.
Yeah. No,
I'll have to check that out. It sounds like it would be right up my alley because I like dinosaurs. I like robots. I actually love the movie AI, so I definitely need to listen to your episode.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We both love the movie, Lou and I, so we had a conversation that was just basically us going deep into how great a movie it is.
Yeah, definitely have to check that out.
So my number 4 is for a YouTuber, actually. So I am not a big exercise person. It's, doesn't give me much, doesn't spark joy. Like if I could throw something away, it would be exercise. But I found a wonderful, wonderful human named Arianna Elizabeth who does yoga and meditation. And especially during the beginning of quarantine, when I was like, I need to find something to watch or listen to or do that is not that allows me to not be in this world a little bit and maybe get myself centered. I started looking at her YouTube videos and she's amazing. She really brings not just a beginner, but just everything is okay type of thing to her yoga in a way that it makes it feel accessible and not oh my gosh, this is the worst thing ever. This is exercise and I'm gonna die and I hate everything about it. And she just is so knowledgeable. Anytime she makes a mistake, instead of saying oh, excuse me, or oh, sorry, she just goes, oh, namaste. And it's the simplest thing. She's your right hand, I mean left hand, namaste. And it's so good. Just watching it for that, is amazing. And so she's really brilliant. And it seems like she's this during quarantine is really when she's been trying to get a lot of these videos out. And she did a full month where it was just every day was a 1-day meditation video. So it wasn't even really active hard yoga or anything like that. And so I would say if you're looking for some Zen, Arianna Elizabeth.
Okay. And then follow that up with Zenimation.
Yes, exactly.
My number 4 is also something different. I chose a book for my number 4. Do you know who the author Ali Brosh is?
Mm-hmm.
She used to have a blog called Hyperbole and a Half. I mean, technically the blog still exists. And she hasn't really done much with that blog for years. She turned the blog into a book and then wrote more chapters 5-ish years ago. So the book is called Hyperbole and a Half also. But out of nowhere, she came back with a new book. She hasn't written anything on the blog for probably 5 years. So she just wrote a new book called Solutions and Other Problems. And it is hilarious. I love her look at life. It's kind of a graphic novel, but not in the way that a graphic novel looks. She's basically made all the artwork in Microsoft Paint.
Yes.
But she also is really good at it. So even though she purposely makes some of her drawings look bad, she also can make really good art in Microsoft Paint. And you wouldn't think that really good art can come out of Microsoft Paint, but she somehow does it. But she also pairs that with the hilarious stories from her life. And stories that maybe aren't hilarious, but the way she tells them is hilarious. The one story that's coming to mind, I have not finished the book. I've only read a few chapters because I just got it. This could be a horrible story, but the way she has written it, so basically she was 3 or something, and horse manure started showing up in their house. And nobody could figure out why. So the whole chapter is basically a mystery, trying to solve the mystery of where this horse manure is coming from. And she's going through all the suspects, telling about why each of their pets would be a suspect, why each of their family members would be a suspect, and what possibly they could gain from putting random piles of horse manure in the house, until she finally solves the mystery at the end. And the way she draws what happened to solve the mystery. I guess, spoiler alert, it was one of their dogs. It was the middle of winter, and they were frozen. The dog was ripping them off of the ground and bringing them through the doggy door and just leaving them.
Oh my god.
The way she tells the story is just bust a gut laughing funny. She is so creative, so hilarious. I love her so much. That's Solutions and Other Problems by Ali Brosh. So if you need a new book, look for that. And look for her first book, Hyperbole and a Half. That is also hilarious as well.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that sounds delightful.
That sounds like the best day.
She's great. I love her so much.
Great. So I guess here we are, the final round.
Yes.
Pick number 5. All right, so I personally saved the best for last. This is not something technically that came out during quarantine, but discovered it during quarantine, and it has really changed
our total existence, really.
My everything. And this is the work of a company, in quotation marks, called Motern Media, which is run by 2 guys named Matt Farley and Charlie Roxburgh. And Matt Farley, you may or may not have seen him on Jimmy Fallon, because he's kind of known as a guy who has made his living by writing 10,000 songs and putting them on Spotify. So he just writes so many songs that he eventually started to make money off of it, and that's what he lives on now. But more so than the songs, he and his friend Charlie Roxburgh make incredible, hilarious movies. They make them with their friends for basically very low budgets, and they don't have a distribution deal or anything like that. But they really embrace the fact that they don't have a budget and that these are low quality movies in a sense, but they're so funny, and they're just have this love for movie making and for horror movies and for older movies and for comedy. So it's kind of like watching like an Ed Wood type of thing, but on purpose. I personally don't think these are so bad they're good movies. I think they're just straight up great movies. I would especially recommend a movie called Don't Let the Riverbeast Get You. If you watch that movie, it's on Amazon Prime, so anyone who has that can watch it. If you watch that movie, well, okay, first of all, if you watch that movie and you don't think it's hilarious, then I don't know what's wrong with you. But also, if you watch that movie and you do think it's hilarious, I have news for you. There's a whole bunch of other movies that they've made that are all hilarious and great. So yeah, I have converted into a total Matt Farley fanatic this quarantine, and so Don't Let the Riverbeast Get You. It's a great, hilarious movie. And also there's a movie called Local Legends that it's kind of different. It's not like a horror comedy like most of their movies. It's more like an indie dramedy in a way. It also has their really funny style, but it's also really, to me, it was a immensely touching movie because it's very autobiographical, and he just explains what his life is and how he got into what he's doing. And as someone who, is trying to make art, and we have podcasts, we have YouTube channels, we make our own things and try to make it. It is very, very inspiring, just how he found to make art and live his life, even if it's in a small scale. He's not, a celebrity or a millionaire, but he has been able to make a living off of it and just dedicate his life to making these movies that he loves and that I love. So yeah.
Okay. I don't think I've heard of that, but I like the sound of the title.
It's
it's such a delight. Oh man, it's really good. It makes me. It was like the book. It just was things I bawled over watching that movie. My stomach has hurt how much I'm laughing when I watch it, and I think that's definitely something that I needed during the quarantine. So
yeah. It's just great because he, obviously most of the people in the movie are not professional actors. They're his friends and his family. And he just gives them this incredibly heightened dialogue to say that not even Daniel Day-Lewis could pull off those lines. And he gives them to friends, you know. So it's like just so funny how they say them, because obviously
it's magic. It's magical. Yeah. It's so brilliant. I love it. My final pick is something that came out earlier in the quarantine, but does definitely count. Megan Thee Stallion and Beyonce mix of Savage. I can't tell you the amount of times I've listened to this song. I can't tell you how much joy. I think my second TikTok, not that I make a lot of them, but my second TikTok ever was because this song came out. It wasn't that technically didn't use the song, but was because the song came out, and I was just like so in love with Megan Thee Stallion, and to have her have a remix with the one and the only Beyonce, like while I was in my apartment and I didn't know what was going to happen and I didn't know if I was going to still have a job. Like, it just brought me such life and such joy, and it reminded me that like there are still like boss women doing everything all the time, and like you just need to go dance and like go get it. It's yours. So yeah, that's my final one.
Great.
Okay. Well, my final one is another Disney Plus series. This is like more of a traditional TV series. And you mentioned you like Muppets, Conrado, so maybe you'll like this. Maybe you've already seen it. It's called Earth to Ned. Have you seen this show yet?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay, this is from the Jim Henson Company, so it's not like the Muppets brand, but they're basically Muppets. It's a giant alien puppet, like this is a real physical prop that they have made, is hosting a talk show. The premise of this show is that he was sent to destroy Earth, but he ended up falling in love with Earth. So now he's exploring the culture through celebrities. So he has new celebrities come on every episode to talk about a different topic that he's chosen. And when I first saw it, I was like, yeah, this could be amusing. And by the third or fourth episode, I was just like, every other minute, I was rolling on the floor laughing, because they've just nailed the humor that they needed to have. It is so funny. The main character, Ned, he has a sidekick who sits, you know, it's like a regular talk show because they have the main character, the host, and then the sidekick off at the side making wisecracks. And then instead of a band, they have these weird little animals that are running around all over the place. They had a band, but they burned all their instruments up in like the first episode. They set all their instruments on fire, and now they just run around doing random things. They're like these little gremlin creatures. They're like hideous but adorable at the same time.
My favorite.
It's such a creative show. It's well written. The humor is on point. It doesn't feel forced. Like, I love the Muppets, but Muppets Now, their show for Disney Plus, I want to like it. It has potential, but they need something more. And I feel like if whoever is making Muppets Now watches Earth to Ned, they could figure out what they need to do to make Muppets Now what it needs to be. Because Earth to Ned feels more, even though it's not Muppets the brand, it feels more like Muppets than Muppets Now feels like the Muppets right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Muppets Now has some points where I do enjoy it, but Earth to Ned just has that, I don't know, it feels Muppety. It's ridiculous, and like I said, the humor is on point, like it's actually funny, whereas Muppets Now seems like it's trying too hard sometimes.
Yeah.
Earth to Ned just feels funny without trying. It's ridiculous. I love it. It's my favorite thing I've watched in a while. Like, a lot of stuff I don't watch a whole lot other than what I'm trying to do for my podcast. So this just felt like a breath of fresh air to find something that I really enjoyed. And now I'm going to do a podcast episode on it because I already found somebody who would talk about it with me. But when I first watched it, I was like, this wasn't for a podcast. It was just to relax, and it was the perfect thing. I loved it so much. If you're a Muppet fan, you need to watch Earth to Ned. It is really good.
Great. Yeah, that sounds great, because I agree with you about Muppets Now, which I watched a couple of stuff, but it just didn't feel right. You know, like you say, it just feels like divine heart. and not really nailing it. But this sounds really exciting, and I love the Muppets. So
Yeah, Muppets Now, the first episode, it was like borderline cringy. That's how I felt watching it. It was like, this is not good. And then it did improve. Like, it gradually improved. I think it was, I don't remember if it was episode 2 or 3. It was actually, for the most part, really funny. They have some really good ideas. They just need, I think they need more improvisation, actually, because the show is supposed to be unscripted, but there's a lot, you can tell that there's a lot of scripting happening. But Earth to Ned, there are parts that are scripted, but they're the parts that relate to their overlying story about him being sent to Earth to destroy it. That part is obviously scripted. But anything with the celebrities, I'm fairly certain that they're either given no direction or just told very generally what is eventually going to happen, and then they just riff. And it's really funny. It's really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think also the Muppet stuff lately has been a little bit hurdled by the fact that all these characters have already been established, and a lot of the puppeteers are not being able to create their own characters that they have the ownership over and they really understand, for the improv stuff. Like, being able to create a character from scratch, like Ned, it sounds like it's perfect because the person who's puppeteering him can just, he knows what to do, and it's always going to feel natural because it's the character they created.
And I think with Ned, anyway, I think I read that there are at least 4 people that puppeteer this thing because it is huge. It is a giant alien. So I feel like that also helps the show because you'll have the celebrities there. It's like they're talking to an actual creature instead of like, there's been other things similar, but like I'm sure the thing, whatever they're talking to, wasn't actually there. Like I remember Disney trying to do something with Phineas and Ferb back in the day where Phineas and Ferb were interviewing celebrities, but like Phineas and Ferb are 2D animated characters, so that show never lasted very long because it wasn't funny. You could tell that they were basically just given a script of what they were going to be asked and they were going along with this. But this, it's a thing. It's physically there. They're talking to this creature, and it just helps the interaction and the improvisation just to be something so much more than you would expect. I went in with not low expectations, but maybe like middling expectations. Like, this will be a fun way to spend a half an hour, and I ended up loving it. So I highly recommend Earth to Ned.
Great.
Nice.
Okay, well, that's all of our 5 picks for quarantine reviews. I guess that'll be the end of this episode. Do you guys want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, we would love for everyone to come check out our web series, Wormholes, which starts on October 14th. That's when the first 2 episodes come out. And then there will be a new episode every Wednesday. It's 10 episodes total. And it is a great, funny science show. Sajda's in it, I'm in it, our friend Kamal's in it. We are very proud of it. We worked really hard on it, so we would love for people to come check it out.
Yeah.
And that's on YouTube at Showdogs NYC. It's the name of the channel.
And if you need any updates, we've got an Instagram, wormholes.tv as well.
Yeah, so if you follow us on Instagram, you'll get all the information you need, wormholes.tv.
Yeah. And then me personally, just want to follow me. It's Sajda on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, and I am Coco Hits New York.
Okay. Well, I will have links to all that, and I guess we will see you next time. Yeah. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much to Sajda and Conrado for joining me on my very first episode of Quarantine Reviews. If you want more from them, and if you want to find out where you can watch their new YouTube series, Wormholes, I'll have their links in the description below. Like I said, I'm tentatively planning to turn this quarantine review thing into a series. I already have a guest lined up for a completely animation-focused episode, but before we get to that, I might have some fall/Halloween content lined up. On my other podcast, Every Version Ever, I'm going to be doing Oztober again. Last year, here on this show, I reviewed a bunch of Wizard of Oz related films all month long, and since that kind of thing is more in line with my content on Every Version Ever, I decided to move the show over there this year. But I am doing one brand new episode for that, a movie which is only vaguely Oz related, and it's kind of very Halloween-y. So I think I'll be sharing that here as well. It's actually a movie I reviewed last year, but this time I'll be bringing on a special guest to talk about it with me. Flying Monkeys. And I can't believe I'm going to be subjecting myself to that horror again, but I'm going to be joined by Nikki from Trivial Theater, and we always have such a great time together, so I figured I could probably put up with this nightmare of a film for her. But aside from that, I do have another episode of iHeart Animation coming. My cousin Sarah and I sat down to talk about the 2014 Cartoon Network miniseries Over the Garden Wall. I've been a huge fan of that show since it originally aired, and it's been something I've wanted to talk about for ages, so I'm really excited to get to that one. It's the perfect Halloween/fall miniseries, movie, whatever you want to call it, and it's the perfect thing for this time of year, so I'm super excited to get to that one. So lots of great things coming for both podcasts, so stick around, you won't want to miss it. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on iHeart Movies.